All right, let's talk about some more DC news. So a little bit of unfortunate timing, just to give you a little bit of inside baseball as we talk about Lanterns again in 2 consecutive episodes of Access Blockbusters Pod, just to give you a little bit of inside baseball into how these episodes are produced. I record them, at the end of the week, right? I record them just based on what I've heard over the past week and collecting stories throughout the week and talking about different things that have happened. And so I record the episode. I post the full episode either Saturday, Sunday, sometimes even Monday. That's when the full episode comes out. And then throughout the next week, I release the individual clips in case people don't want to listen to the whole episode, even though, there are time codes in the description of the podcast episode. Anyways, I digress. But also, I think the clips are really nice because it allows other people who perhaps, haven't been a part of the Access Blockbusters community to be able to find the podcast and learn about what we do here. So anyways, that's a little bit of the behind the scenes. But the reason I bring it up in regards to this topic about Lanterns is because I recorded last week's podcast a week ago and I posted it on Saturday. So, the news about the rumored Josh Brolin / Matthew McConaughey / Ewan McGregor being part of or being cast as Hal Jordan was, I posted it maybe a couple days after the news had broke, been rumored at least, and then, posted the full episode then on Saturday, and we talked about it in the full podcast episode. But then I was splitting up the podcast into clips, and then, I usually schedule out the clips and I post them, on certain days. And so that's why I scheduled the clip for Josh Brolin coming out or being rumored to be at Hal Jordan on the day basically that the news broke that he is not going to be Hal Jordan. So let's talk about that story, just to give you some context about why I talked about Hal Jordan as Josh Brolin as Hal Jordan basically the day after it was confirmed he was not going to be Hal Jordan. But I also talked about in that episode what the implications of having an older, grizzled, more veteran Hal Jordan would be, and that is precisely what this new Hollywood Reporter report has confirmed. So let's talk about this new news here on Josh Brolin passing on Lanterns and what the story details are about this new Lanterns show. So last week it was reported that Josh Brolin had been offered the role of Hal Jordan with Matthew McConaughey and Ewan McGregor as other secondary choices. Now, I guess by proxy, because the Hollywood Reporter, which is a very, very reliable source, has now reported that Hal Jordan, that Josh Brolin has turned down the role of Hal Jordan, that report was at least partially true. And also they mentioned Matthew McConaughey, so that part is true. Nothing about Ewan McGregor, though. So who even knows if Ewan McGregor was even part of that running? But at least, Josh Brolin and Matthew McConaughey were probably considered at some point to be Hal Jordan. What we kind of were able to extrapolate from that is that it looked like they were going for a more veteran, older version of Hal Jordan to be in this Lanterns show, which James Gunn had described as a true detective kind of crime drama mystery, if you will, murder mystery on Earth that has implications for the wider universe. So that's really interesting. Now, the Hollywood Reporter has basically confirmed all of that and given us a little bit more of a concrete idea of what Lanterns is going to be. So first of all, it confirms that Josh Brolin was offered the role of Hal Jordan, but as recently as a few days ago, or maybe even a couple weeks ago, he declined the offer to be Hal Jordan. So let's stop and talk about that right there. Honestly, people are speculating, oh, he turned it down because he's sick of comic book movies, or he turned it down because he doesn't think lanterns are interesting. There could be a whole host of reasons why Josh Brolin turned down the role as Hal Jordan in Lanterns. And honestly, all of them could be valid, and 99 of them could be things we just don't know about. Maybe he booked a film that he's just so incredibly excited about that he just can't do it, or whatever. We don't know the full circumstances. So honestly, I think it's kind of futile and kind of, I'm not going to say irrelevant to speculate about why, but I just don't think it's important, that we speculate why he turned down the role. He turned down the role. It's fine. Actors do it all the time. It hardly means anything, honestly. Like Emily Blunt had to turn down the role of Black Widow in the MCU. And while I don't think she, regrets it particularly, Scarlett Johansson really, and she, Scarlett Johansson's a fantastic actress outside of the MCU, but, made a huge name for herself in the worldwide movie industry as Natasha Romanoff. So, it's not like actors turning down roles necessarily always means something. So that's the first thing that I wanted to say. Now, a couple other details that we want to talk about here. The article mentions that Matthew McConaughey as well is not going to be Hal Jordan. Now, what's interesting about this article is that it does not say that Matthew McConaughey was offered the role, or it doesn't say that he turned down the role. It just says that we can also confirm that Matthew McConaughey will also not be suiting up as the Green Lantern, Hal Jordan. So kind of sort of confirming that report that at least Matthew McConaughey was either considered or rumored or something in between where, he was in the running in some capacity. That's interesting. No concrete confirmation of that, though, in any regard. But just kind of an interesting tidbit that they decided to throw in there as well. But again, the most interesting part is the story detail that Hollywood Reporter provides, which is, I think, mostly what we knew about the show, but it's still nice to kind of hear some more concrete details. As it looks like Lanterns is going to be the first big HBO show, maybe actually after Peacemaker Season 2, it looks like Lanterns is going to be the first big show that comes out from the DCU. So this article says that Lanterns is going to focus on Hal Jordan mentoring a younger John Stewart as they explore a murder that was committed on Earth that has wider implications, perhaps intergalactic implications. So again, mostly things that we knew before, but I think that this now cements what I was saying last week in the last episode of Access Blockbusters Pod, where I said, look, I mean, if you have Hal Jordan and he's kind of the older veteran guy, the older veteran Green Lantern, then surely you're going to want at least one younger Green Lantern because, you're not going to want the older Hal Jordan to be around for 20 years, the DCU, if the DCU is so lucky to be around for 20 years, right? I mean, look, some of the MCU actors have been around for almost 20 years. Chris Hemsworth, for example, almost. Not quite there, but almost, right? And so, you want the younger actor to kind of take up that mantle and be a part of that long-lasting character arc. And I think that now it's confirmed that John Stewart is going to be that iteration of Green Lantern that we can look forward to. That, I think it's really nice, actually. It's maybe a nice balance to have a Hal Jordan here where, and again, I know that there are some people who are very upset about this because they wanted Hal Jordan to be younger and they wanted him to be the main Green Lantern. I think it's fine. I think that, there are many interesting ways to incorporate the Green Lantern Corps into the DCU. And I think of it almost like, I remember actually the discourse when Ant-Man was being announced and being cast, and people were saying, not quite to the same extent, obviously, because Hank Pym has been around in the comics forever, but people were saying similar things. They were like, why are we going with Scott Lang? It's Hank Pym, and Hank Pym should be Ant-Man. I don't know if you guys remember that, but it turned out they went with Scott Lang, they went with Paul Rudd, and it worked out fantastically. Hank Pym has been in the MCU since 2015, and he's still kicking. I mean, he was last seen in Ant-Man: The Lost Quantumania, so he was there in the MCU for at least 8 years, which is crazy. And you also had Scott Lang. So again, I just think that it's not like we're not going to get Hal Jordan. It's not like we're going to get a 90-year-old Hal Jordan. It's going to be an actor that I think will bring a very certain high level of engagement and wisdom and veteran presence that I think will, kind of counterbalance a John Stewart. So really interesting stuff that we get to see and hear from the Hollywood Reporter about the Lantern series, and I'll just be really interested to hear whoever they actually end up casting in the role. What do you guys think about these reports about the story of Lanterns, and also that the fact that Josh Brolin is passing on the role, but also that the role seems like it's going for a Josh Brolin kind of actor? What do you think about that? Let me know in the comments down below.